All right, man, peace. So for those of you brothers who remember all the way back to just prior to the 2012 NFL draft, pretty much the consensus amongst the NFL prognosticators and the football experts was that Mr. Andrew Luck was the best quarterback prospect that they had seen since John Elway. And what both John Elway and Andrew Luck have in common is that they both attended Stanford University. Now we know that Stanford University is a hub of MK Ultra mind control programming. So is Mr. Andrew Luck a Monarch athlete? Who knows? His bloodline, his father, Oliver Luck, was an NFL quarterback as well. And also, just as an aside, not to digress, but Issa Rae also emerged from Stanford University, as well as others. But that's another video for another day. Point being is this. Andrew Luck has been through quite an up and down throughout his NFL career. He started off relatively quickly. And then, of course, due to his overly rambunctious style of quarterback play where he liked to run into tacklers as opposed to trying to avoid them, in my view, this has cut years off of his career. But in a roundabout way, I don't think that he minds it because I don't think that football is his first love. I think that it's a love. I don't think that we have another Vontae Davis on our hands, someone who's preternaturally gifted in a certain field that he has no interest in whatsoever. I don't believe that. But I do believe that there are things that Mr. Andrew Luck is more interested in than football. And now, due to his emergence, his rejuvenation of his career, his name is being bandied about as having a possible outside chance at winning the NFL MVP award. Now, will he do that? Of course not. Because as of right now, there are about 4 or 5 names that are ahead of him. On my list, of course, number 1 is Drew Brees. Number 2 is Pat Mahomes. 2A, I would have Jared Goff. And then, of course, number 4, I'd have Todd Gurley. And really, you know what? Number 5, I might have Aaron Donald. And then maybe Mr. Andrew Luck. But, you know, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Andrew Luck, kids on fire. The Colts win their 4th straight game, and the former number 1 pick now has 7 straight games with at least 3 touchdown passes. Luck now trails only Peyton Manning and Tom Brady for most such games in a single season. Fantastic company to be in. Max, does he deserve MVP consideration?
Yes.
Well, no. And I think that even he himself would tell you that. And sometimes the conversations get ridiculous with the people who might have an outside chance of winning this award and that award. I myself believe that conversations like that should be restricted to who has a realistic opportunity to win such and such award. Andrew Luck, he should be the focus of the conversation pertaining to the Comeback Player of the Year award. And I think that he has that in the bag.
Yes, he does. That does not mean that you should actually think about giving him the MVP right now, because clearly that's Drew Brees. But when you look at the likely candidates, when you select among your pool of MVP candidates, Andrew Luck has now replaced Phillip Rivers. And interesting.
I agree with that totally. And Phillip Rivers, to me, has been one of the most overrated NFL players of the last 20 years.
You look up their QBRs, he just also passed them there. I mean, 3 guys ahead there. He's 5th in the league in QBR. 3 of the guys ahead of him are Brees, Mahomes, and Goff. And they should all be considered ahead of him in the MVP contest too.
I believe that the MVP contest is pretty much all about Drew Brees, Pat Mahomes, and Jared Goff. Everyone else has an outside chance. If Todd Gurley does not break LaDainian Tomlinson's record for most touchdowns in an NFL season, he has absolutely no chance of winning the NFL Most Valuable Player award.
And also Todd Gurley should be. But he's now replaced Rivers, who choked at a bad moment and was done this throughout his career.
Absolutely. Phillip Rivers is a big choker in the clutch.
I hate to say it. As the other guy who's starting to get consideration. I've never forgotten this. It seems a lot of people have. Stephen A., to your credit, you've also always given Andrew Luck credit. That was the dude most likely to take over for Aaron Rodgers as the best in the business.
I never thought that. I always thought that Andrew Luck was far too much of a gambler to take over for someone like an Aaron Rodgers, who puts on the air of having that quote-unquote go-for-broke streak. But Aaron Rodgers is definitely very cognizant of being as proficient as possible. He will not hesitate to check it down. What Aaron Rodgers does do too much oftentimes is scramble in the pocket when it's not really necessary. But I never consider Andrew Luck to be a possible replacement for him. Prior to the injuries, Luck reminded me of a slightly better version of Brett Favre. Now, Brett Favre's peak is better than anything that Andrew Luck has ever done. Once again, Brett Favre from about 94 to about 98, his peak is up there with any other quarterback's peak. But over the course of a career, Much of Brett Favre's career was overrated in my view, but he did have a great 4-year or 3-year stretch, which Andrew Luck has never approached. Now, can Andrew Luck get to that level? We'll see. In this super-duper offensive era of the NFL, we might see a rejuvenated Andrew Luck. We might see a player who, despite the fact that he clearly has diminished to some degree in regards to his arm talent in the aftermath of his shoulder injury, he may make up for it with additional understanding of the scope of the game, what's going on around him, and he may get his arm strength back next year.
Remember earlier in the season against the Eagles where they had to bring in Brissett to throw the Hail Mary because Luck's arm was a wet noodle? How about that? How about some of those passes last night? Andrew Luck got his arm strength back.
Well, it's coming back. It's still not quite where it was.
It's a wrap. The dude is 6'4", cock diesel, can run.
Pause.
Can throw, not afraid to lose. Is smart, lives, dreams, eats, sleeps football like a real football nerd.
Well, he's a wonderkind. You have to understand that he was raised from childhood to be a super quarterback, to basically be a robo quarterback.
Dude is the truth, and he is now in the conversation.
Hey, Max, can I ask you a question? Do you work for First Take or 1-800-Flowers? Because it looked like you're ready to go and deliver some flowers to Andrew Luck.
I agree. Especially this dude talking about he cocked diesel. Like, really? I think Andrew Luck is a great quarterback, but why are you looking at his muscles like that, Max Kellerman?
I mean, is it like that? I'm just saying.
So what? Yeah, it's like that.
I'm just saying.
Sure, it's like that.
Is it like that? I just want to know.
Sure,
Because you know, I got, listen. I got some peeps at 1-800-Flowers now. They sponsor my show all the time, and I love them.
I got you.
I'm just telling. All I got to do is make a call to them. Listen, I can arrange for you to get the trip to Indianapolis to deliver him some flowers. I mean, ain't no
shame in my game.
Well, we know there's no shame in your game. To be quite frank with you, both you and Stephen A. Smith have man crushes that you constantly lavish with an inordinate amount of praise, especially when it comes to football quarterbacks. Stephen A. Smith and his man crush on Aaron Rodgers is even worse than Max Kellerman and his man crush on Andrew Luck. Look at Damian Woody in the middle. Okay, Stephen, where my honey buns?
To make sure, if that's how you feel, it's cool. Let me be very clear. Let me be very, very clear about something here, because it's true. Andrew Luck is balling, no doubt. And Chris Ballard, the general manager, clearly made the right hire with Frank Reich, although that was a second choice because we know he wanted Josh McDaniels, and I think that would have been a mistake. It's great that he's got Andrew.
Let me say this. The Indianapolis Colts will be a great landing spot for Le'Veon Bell.
Andrew Luck, 29 touchdowns, just 9 interceptions, completing 67% from his passes. You know what I've always felt years ago, as much as I loved me some RG3, I was never under this illusion that RG3 should have went ahead in the draft of Andrew Luck. I knew better. Andrew Luck is special, no doubt.
Well, we'll never know what RG3 could have been because he was a brother who lacked self-awareness. He wanted to be Steve Young as opposed to taking his time. And he was just in the wrong system. Overall, not just in regards to his coach, but also his understanding. So he was never going to be a long-term, highly proficient coach working under Shanahan because Shanahan never really wanted him in the first place. But because Shanahan is an offensive mastermind, he was able to bring out the best in RG3. But I believe that Shanahan always felt like he wanted Kirk Cousins to start over RG3. And RG3 sensed that. So they were never going to work. That's what I mean when I say that it was a mix that was very, very corrosive or potentially corrosive on both sides. And then beyond that, RG3 was just somebody who allowed the limelight to get way too deep into his head. He was no longer focused primarily on football. He was more focused on building his brand, and it ended up blowing up in his face. So he is a cautionary tale. Now, if RG3 had been fortunate enough to have a coach like a Sean McVay, who knows what he could be right now. We might be talking about RG3 like how we talk about Jared Goff or how we talk about the brother down there with the Texans, Deshaun Watson. Who knows?
I also want to applaud the Colts for drafting that Kid Nelson out of Notre Dame because as a guard offense, I mean this kid is big time. That's an incredible pick. Having said all of that, Max and Damian, can we pump the brakes just a touch? Just a touch, because Mollywood, you know where I'm going with this, right? Can we look at the schedule?
Well, we already know they play in the AFC South, Stephen A. Smith. But the AFC South is not as terrible as you're going to try to make it out to be. But I get what you're saying.
A game winning streak. The Buffalo Bills.
Stephen A.
The Oakland Raiders. The struggling Jacksonville Jaguars. They played that's a different team that went against the Steelers compared to the team we saw the previous 5 weeks. And obviously, Tennessee's respectable, even though they didn't look that way yesterday. 3 of those 4 victories. Buffalo, Oakland, and...
Right, but Steve, we can't just state that Andrew Luck is playing great football and then try to state, well, he played against the Tennessee Titans yesterday. They've been okay. They've been better than okay. They've had one of the top 3 defenses in the NFL for the entire season. For Luck to shred them like that shows you how effective he is.
Jacksonville, come on now. Come on. Let's bump.
Can you get the man a resume?
I'm just saying, like.
Well, hold on. First of all, Buffalo has one of the best top defenses in the National Football League.
Really, you go.
So do the Titans.
You're going
Yeah.
Yes, Stephen A. Smith, he's going there. It's called a fact.
Wasn't it Jets game?
Molly, don't get me started.
Oh, you were wild in that video. Wild.
Mentally, I moved
This guy on
past
the gram.
you trying to bring me back to that. But listen, absolutely, Andrew Luck deserves to be in the MVP conversation. I mean, we talked about 7 straight games with 3 or more touchdown passes. Do you know that the only 2 players to have a longer streak are Tom Brady and Peyton Manning? In both of the historic seasons. Think about that. I mean, we talk about Pat Mahomes and we talk about Todd Gurley, and they're playing lights out. But when you're talking about being in a situation where you're throwing 3 or more touchdown passes in 7 straight games,
And again,
I agree with you, Professor Clump. Damian Woody. I agree with you. Andrew Luck has been exemplary. He's been superlative, especially in the last 7 games. But we also have to pump the brakes just a little bit, to quote Stephen A. Smith, because we are in a different era of football. I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to compare the season that he's having to what Tom Brady did back in 07. What Tom Brady did back in 07, that still to me is the greatest season that I've ever seen a quarterback have.
get some good defenses. Tennessee got a defense.
I don't care what Stephen A. talking about. You can read the schedule all you want. And listen, I tweet out, Indianapolis is building they're building a bully. They're building a bully. I'm not going to whoa. They're building a bully.
I'm not finished, Stephen A. I'm going to finish. Then I'm going to give me a donut.
Bully. Watch out. Indianapolis Colts.
I agree with you, Damian Woody. They are going to be a bit of a problem, especially if they can get Le'Veon Bell.
Watch out for the
Panthers. Stephen A.
You're the one that brings up competition all the time. How you gonna ignore that
No. You're not going to sit here on the show and try to downplay what Andrew Luck is doing right now. I'm not having it.
Stephen A., I'm not having it. Every morning you invite me here to talk all this shit and no honey buns.
I'm not having it.
Okay.
No, I'm not having it.
All right, let's all take it down a notch. 6-inch voices, please.
The one thing about Luck,
Yeah.
it's the old Roy Jones song.
Okay.
Y'all must have forgot. Luck is that man.
I like it. How about this, guys? We keep it real.
Well, I'll say this. In regards to AFC quarterbacks, he's definitely top 5, probably top 3. I would take Mahomes over him and probably Brady still. Even though Brady's starting to teeter-totter. I think that Brady's about to fall off a bit, but we'll see. Just off of mentality, I would take Brady second. And I honestly would probably take Andrew Luck over Big Ben. So that's just my rudimentary list right now. And, of course, you have Deshaun Watson, who's on the come-up. He might be even Steven with Luck, but Luck just has a lot more in regards to his resume than Deshaun Watson as of right now. So, peace.